Welcome, guys. Welcome to the very last live stream in these surroundings. Moving into a new studio, and am excited to show you the new place and let you know more about it, because it's kind of an exciting opportunity that I've taken, and looking forward to this new chapter. So yeah, this is the very last live stream that you will see from here. And yeah, today's topic is something that I've talked about a bit in my lessons, the sort of deep dive lessons on Patreon, but we haven't really gone into any great depth here on YouTube with regards to that. So I thought that today we should do that. And basically, I want to talk about how you can, make the most out of your licks, most out of your guitar licks that you've learned or that you are learning in general, so that when you learn a solo or certain licks, they're not just like this separate thing that you learn and then you go about your day, but that they become part of your playing. That's really the objective, that you take the licks that you're learning and you really internalize them, and you really make them a part of your language as such. That's the idea. So I want to show you guys some of the ways that you can achieve that you can really make your licks, become part of your playing as such, and really open up your playing and open up your vocabulary as a musician. So I want to give you some tips on how to do that. Some of them are, it's the kind of stuff that you can spend infinite amounts of time working on. It's all about how much you wanna work. But of course, it's all chained to what I love to do the most, which is jam. Play and have fun. That's the basis of it all. So hey, I want to do a little warm-up jam, and let me know where you guys are in the world. I always love to hear where you are in the world. And also, let me know in the comments what you do when you've learned a lick. How do you process like learning a lick? What do you do to it after you've learned a certain lick or a whole solo, for example? So yeah, I'm gonna be playing today on tracks off of my album, the Sexy series, which is out already on quistorama.com. There's a link to the album. It's been out for about a week on my website, and it's been downloaded so much already. I'm really happy with how that thing turned out. It's all slow blues. It's from what has become called the Sexy series. I didn't even give it that name. That was you guys. So I thought, hey, I'm going to put out an album of a collection of some of the most popular slow blues jams from the Sexy series. And like I said, it's been out on Quistorama for about a week. You can grab a couple of free downloads off of it. It's linked below. But today it's actually out everywhere as well. So it's out on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, all of that jazz. It's linked below. Check it out. It's called the Sexy series. So that's what I'm going to be jamming on today. Just slow blues jams, in order to take the licks and use them in that kind of context. And also the licks that I'm going to be using are actually from solos that are full tabs. They're also linked below. It's all on my Patreon. That's where all of my tabs are, where I put all of my tabs, my scale maps, my lessons, my deep dives, all that stuff. That's all on Patreon. And it's two different solos that I've taken some licks from that we're gonna pick at, just try and work with those. We're gonna work with those licks as a starting point. And why don't I have a little warm up, and I will try and play around with those licks. It's like 3 different licks that we'll dig into from 2 different solos. One is the Mixolydian slow blues that came out 2 weeks ago, I think, and the other is the slow blues, like lo-fi groove style solo. Both of them have full tabs that are on Patreon. So obviously, people that are supporting me on Patreon, the most popular tier on there is the tab lover tier, and the tier above that, which is the good stuff tier. So for the tab lover tier, you get instant access to all my tabs, which is over 100 different tabs by now. So I think it's turning into a really good deal. I make new tabs all of the time. In fact, tomorrow there's a new tab and a new jam coming. So there you go, and the good stuff tier has like all my deep dive lessons as well and everything else. So check it out, guys. I appreciate the support very, very much. So I'm gonna play on a slow blues in G. Tell me where you guys are in the world. Always love to hear that. And what you do with your licks. Because it'll be interesting to hear what your approach is, and we can see if there's any overlap between your approach and my approach. Okay, here we go. So this is track 1 from the Sexy series, and slow blues in G. So here we go. Okay, so obviously, some of those phrases seem a little bit forced, which would mainly be because, I was trying to cram those licks in there. I was trying to, like make those phrases fit basically into it, just as a, to get them used, So obviously, not the most musical of my solos ever, but nevertheless, it was proving a point, that fitting stuff in, and trying to really mess about with your licks. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to use them in as many different ways as I can, and some of the ways they really work, and you go, whoa, that lick is like so cool when I play it like that, and other ways are like, that didn't really work. You know what I mean? But like experimenting is the key. You know, that's how you find out which ways are going to be super cool and inspiring, and which ways are like, yeah, that doesn't really work in that way. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing. So yeah, it's like 3 different licks. The first one is like a simple like a Mixolydian run. You can add that to the end, but I think we'll just do that right there. The original solo is actually an A. In fact, all the examples that I've got linked, you know, the full tabs for down below, all of those are actually in A. But I was, you know, playing in G here, proving one of my points, which we'll get to in a minute when I go through everything that you can do to really make the most of your licks and build them into your playing. So yeah, I'll teach them to you in the key of A, like this. That's the first lick. Now the next one is also Mixolydian from the same solo, also linked down below, and it goes like this. It's like one of the last licks of the Mixolydian solo that came out a couple of weeks ago. It's a pretty long one. Okay, so that is the second one. Now the third one is a simple idea that goes, and then like that. I'll do that again. Okay? Something like that. All right, so we will dive into these licks. I'll teach you all of them, note by note, note for note, and then we'll mess about with them in order to get you know, really get them built into your playing. So let me see, first of all, very quickly, who's in the house and where you guys are all at. I always like to see where people are at. Okay, so like I was just saying, this is the very last session that we do in this studio, and I am pretty excited about my new studio. My 2 neighbors are actually people that probably most of you will know. They're, one is a famous amp and guitar gear manufacturer, and the other is a also quite famous YouTuber and guitarist. Has played with a bunch of A-list artists, so very, very sweet guy. And there we go, guys. So Kenya is in the house. Wow, that's awesome. Benjamin, yes, let's get your music going. Absolutely, I will do it right there. Guitar student, bring the tips. Absolutely. Norway is in the house. France is in the house. That's awesome. Russia, St. Petersburg, love St. Petersburg. Denmark, says Paul. Hey man, that is my birthplace. Philippines in the house, love it. Kansas City, Newfoundland, Canada. How very awesome. New York, love it. Austria, very cool. Look at that. Very good, guys. Oh, and Joel is in the house. How are you doing? So, all right, let's dive into this, guys. Very good. All right, so I'll teach you each of these licks, let's go through some of the ideas, some of the ways that I feel are, the surefire ways that you can make licks, not just something that you learn, but something that you really internalize, and that's something that becomes part of your playing and your vocabulary as a, speaking musician or an improvising musician. So, all right, rule number one. The first thing you can do is transfer them into different keys. Seems like a simple thing, but let's take that first lick and figure out, how can we transfer that into a different key. So right now it's in A, it's in A mixolydian type of vibe. In fact, there's no flat 7, so you can use it in a major scale scenario as well. But yeah, here we go. Let's just learn this lick. This is the first lick. So 4th finger on your 9th fret of the G string, you pull that off to the 7th fret, and you also pull that 2nd finger off to the 6th fret with your 1st finger, like that. Okay? Everybody good with that one? Okay? And then use your 3rd finger on the D string, 7th fret, and then 2nd finger on the D string, A string, 7th fret. So 3rd finger on the D string, 2nd finger on the A string. So that's really, right there is just an A major triad. Then we're going to use our 1st finger on the 5th fret, slide that down to that glorious major 3rd on the 4th fret of the A string. And then we're going to go back up to the A note, which is the root note, because this is an A and this is the root note. So the reason I'm saying it's the root note, very important to have some kind of knowledge and awareness of what is the root note, because that is the one thing that will enable you to transfer this to other keys. So if you know that that's the root note, then it's like, well, okay, so this is an A. You see the lower octave there. Well, that means that I can transfer that lick to, for example, G, like I was doing at the very start of this session. I was playing it in G. So that means, okay, if I bring it down 2 steps, 2 frets, one whole scale step, then I get to G. So I should be able to make it work as a lick in G by doing it right there. Like that. So now I've taken that whole lick and I've transferred it down to G by recognizing that that is the root note. So if I land on that and that is a G, then I'm in G. Okay, so let's pick another key like C, for example. So can we find a C? Well, there's a C, there's the octave C. So that means that this is where it needs to end, which means that there it is, the C. So take your licks, figure out where the root note is, if there is a root note to find, and then use that as a navigation kind of tool to figure out, how you can move it to a different key. That alone is a great start to make your lick more usable, because it's like you're not always going to play an A or G. So if you can figure out how to use that lick in any key, it's like, whoa, you've just vastly increased the use of that lick. Okay, so that is that's our first idea. Use your licks in a ton of different keys. All the keys that you can figure out how to transpose it into. Okay, number 2. Next up, using it in different tempos and different like styles, and in music with a different feel and a different groove is the next thing. Because you know, a lick is going to feel so different if you're playing it on a blues shuffle, and like a slow blues shuffle like we were just doing, then like say that you were playing it on like a straight up rock track, you know, straight A's. If you were trying to fit it in on that, it's going to feel so different. And probably if you really spend some time playing around with it, you'll end up with a somewhat different version of it, which, great, you've got a new lick, you know, it's morphed into something else, and you were part of the morphing process, so it's going to be sounding more like you when that happens. So that's trick number 2, guys. Just take those licks and use them in a variety of different styles and you know, grooves and feels. Obviously, you know, hit up some of my jam tracks. I've got so many different styles and grooves and feels out by now. So just search for, you know, the key that you want to try it out in, or the specific scale or whatever, and you're going to find a track that you can experiment with, and then you know, try a bunch of different ones. Spend that time like jamming and trying to make your licks fit on a variety of different contexts. I promise you, it is time worth spending. So that's tip number 2, guys. Try it out with, you know, lots of different scenarios and feels. The next one is try out a lick that you learn in different positions. So how can you find different positions? So that requires a little bit of knowledge of, like, you know, the caged system, for example. Like all my scale maps on Patreon and all that, they're all always delivered in the caged system. I'm a great believer in the caged system. I think it's a great way to really unlock the whole neck. And yeah, it can be very helpful in navigating like the different ways that you can play a scale or a lick all over the neck. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this lick here that we just learned. We're going to, instead of having it here, which is the E shape, that shape there, E shape, we're going to try it in this shape, which is the A shape. And that's going to land there in the A shape. So it starts on this note, which is, well, it's the 5th from the A. It's that E note there. So I'm trying to find the E note on a different set of strings so that we can make the lick work from there. And so I can find that there. So it requires a bit of a bar there. So on the 14th fret. So I go 17, 15, 14 on the B string. And then I go 14, 14, 14. That was a little bit difficult. And then you slide from 12 to 11 on D. And then you land on that glorious root note, the A, on the 14th fret of the G string. There it is. So now we can play this lick in a different position and in a different way. So that's just opened up a whole new world of possibilities. You'll see in a minute how handy that will become. Let's try a different position as well. Let's try it up here. So that's up the octave, similar kind of look. Yeah, let's try it up there. So we kind of almost want to slide up to the octave now. So now, because I've done it in a different position, it's actually changing a little bit. I feel like sliding up to it just because it's easier and it sounds great. So let's try that. Let's try and learn that. So that's 12, 10, 9 on the E string, all being pulled off. And then second finger there on the 10th fret of the B string. First finger on the 9th fret of the G string. Okay. And then slide down from 7 to 6 on the G string. With your first finger. Okay? Now I'm going to use my 3rd finger to slide from 8 to 10. Like that. Up to the A. So now this lick has become this, which I think is pretty cool. It's a pretty it feels good, that lick. It feels good to me anyway. So okay, that is the next tip for you guys. Try it out in different positions, in different octaves, and see what happens, you know, because it'll open up the lick and it'll make it more usable, and it'll open up also more chance of it being used, you know, because it's like if you're soloing in a certain position and you're like, oh, what can I do? Well, the more licks you know in that position, the more you can, you know, come up with that that's going to sound awesome. So it's like if you know, like to play up here in this position, now you found a way that can get you from that position and down here, and that kind of thing. You know, it all links together. So the more you can, the more time you can spend learning licks in various positions, the more links you've got, the more opportunity, you know, you get for really morphing things around and getting, you know, between the positions in interesting ways and so forth. So there you go, guys. That is another one. Okay, the next principle that I want to talk about is to separate your licks into fragments. So to take, you know, a lick and say, well, what happens if I only play half of it, or only play this tiny little part of the phrase? Because I might just want to play around with that, you know. And then once you do that, you can start to experiment with, you know, having different endings and getting into them in different ways, like different start, different ending, and so forth. So just like minimize the lick into one little thing, and then give it a different start, run into it in a different way, or get out of it in a different kind of way. Really more spending time jamming around your licks, that kind of way. Super useful. So once again, I'm gonna have a little jam. Maybe I'll try. I'll do track 10 from the Sexy series, which just came out today everywhere, and that one's slow blues in A, so we can stay in the key for now. So I'll play a tiny bit on that one for you, and before we do that, I'll teach you the whole of that, the long lick that we're going to use for this example. So it goes like this. So that is one of the licks from Mixolydian Jam that came out a couple of weeks ago. It's a full intro solo. The tab is linked below. So if you join up on Patreon, you'll get not just that solo, but like more than 100 more other tabs, tons of solos, and like lessons to go with them and whatnot. So here we go. So I'm going to try and play around with that lick in a minute on the jam, but first I'll just show you how to play this lick so you can get it down. So first of all, we're in the, you know, good old minor pentatonic, A minor pentatonic position. but it's kind of more of a Mixolydian kind of vibe. So it mixes Mixolydian and the minor scale in that kind of bluesy fashion that is fun. I love that sound. So here we go. You hammer on from 5 to 8. Okay? 5 to 8 on the B string with your first and fourth finger. I like to use my fourth finger. If you want to use your third, that's fine. I'm going to use my fourth. And then I'm going to play that top note there, 5th fret. That's the A note right there. So that's the root note. So make a note of that, because that's what's going to be, be good for navigating, taking this lick and putting it into different keys. So if that's your root note, well, okay, that means here's G, here it is in C, here it is in E, in D. Okay, so, right, 5, 8, hammering on, and then 5 on the top E string, and then again back to 5 on the B string. So I've got a bar here with my first finger, like that. Okay? We good with that? Now we're going to do a little quarter note bend, just a tiny little bend. Kind of bend it up towards the major third, but not necessarily all the way. So I'm using all of my fingers here, like I talk about often when I talk about bending. Don't just use the one finger. Get your other fingers behind it and to take part in the bend so that you don't strain your muscles here. So bend that 8th note, the 8th fret, the C note on the E string, up a quarter note, just a tiny little bend. Okay, and then you're gonna go so that after the bend you go 5 and then pull off from 8 to 5 on the B string. Okay? Okay, that's the first part of the lick. Now we're gonna go and run down the minor blues scale. So yeah. Okay, so that here is back up to that A note there on the 5th fret of the top E string, and then pull off again from 8 to 5 on the B string, and then play the blue note on the 8th fret with your little finger, and then pull off again, still on the G string, pull off from 7 till 5 with your third finger to your first finger, and then land on the A note right there on the 7th fret with your third finger. So that in itself is, you could call that a lick. It's really just the minor blues scale played in a way that makes it flow really nicely. So that's something that you could, isolate as a fragment and play. Okay? So that's the first part. Now we're going to do the last half, which goes. So now we're going to go roll down here on the to the G string with the third finger, and and we're going to hammer on from the minor third to the major third, which is 5 to 6 on the G string. Okay, so, and then similar to the first lick that we did, we're going to go down like this, so very similar. So third finger on the D string, second finger on the A string, 7th fret, both of them. So that in itself is a little lick that you could isolate. Okay? And then we're going to slide from 5 to 4 with the first finger. So, and then all the way down the scale, we're going to play the B note there on the 7th fret and the A note on the 5th fret. So, and then it continues down, a little bit of chromaticism here. So, after the A note there on the 5th fret, we're going to slide from 4 to 3 with the first finger. Okay, and then finally we're going to pull off again from the B to the A on the 7th fret. So 7th fret to the 5th fret. That's your last note, the A note, which is handy because that'll make it easy for us to navigate, putting this into different keys, because it actually ends on the root note on the low string, which is kind of one of the strings that most of us learn how to, we know as one of the first things is when you're finding out what the notes are, it'll be on the low E string, because it's the root note of chords and so forth. So that's handy. So the whole lick. Okay, so that is the whole lick. So that's obviously like a combination of hammer-ons and pull-offs and all that sort of stuff, which is part of what creates like the rhythmic contour of the phrasing. And yeah, that's a whole other conversation. I've had so many requests actually for a live stream or a deep dive lesson on Patreon for phrasing as a topic, and that will definitely happen at some point soon. I will continue with these Friday live streams. So yeah, the phrasing, we'll dig into phrasing as a topic on its own at some point in the near future. And yeah, if you've just joined, and also if you're been using my tracks for ages but haven't necessarily subscribed, please do subscribe. Click the bell notification button so that you will see these live stream lessons, and obviously we'll see all the jams and everything. I'm dropping a new blues jam tomorrow that also has full tab for the solo and everything else, scale maps, all that jazz. So yeah, I hope that you will have fun with that one. It's all there to help you guys grow your musicality. And yeah, there we go, guys. Let me have a jam. Let me try and use that lick. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I was saying. So we're digging a bit deep here, so you might have to come back and rewatch some of this. But so what I was saying was, try and take fragments of your licks and go get into them in different ways, get out of them in different ways. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to try and demonstrate. I'm going to play track 10 from the Sexy series, like this extremely slow blues in A, and I am going to take fragments of that lick and try and kind of weave them into other phrases. So that's really one of the main ways, a really handy way to get your licks onto another level, to really start to make them part of your playing, is take little fragments of them and build them into your already existing, bank of licks. So that's what I'm going to try and do right now. I'm going to take little bits of this lick and get into them in different kind of ways, and get out of them in different kind of ways as well. And maybe I'll do what we were talking about before as well. Maybe I'll try and use do some of it in different. Maybe I'll try them in kind of different positions, and that kind of thing as well. Okay, so let's have a go, guys. Okay, so yeah, right there, I was really trying to just play around with it, play around with that whole phrase, and just take little fragments. So even 3 notes there, I was taking out of that phrase, and I was making that into a repetitive figure. Just 5, 8, pull off to 5 on the B string there, barring with my first finger. So that lick was inherent in the other lick, because so I just took a tiny fragment and made that a new lick, and repeated that. So again, showing like just how much information there actually is in your licks in general. It's like, so if you can take 3 notes out of a lick like that and make a really cool phrase out of it like that, well, you know, that opens up so much, you know, and probably licks that you already know are just the same. You know, you can take any lick like that and just focus in on a fragment, like 3 notes, and make that like a repetitive kind of phrase, and then get a whole lot of bang for your buck. You know, like repetitive phrases like that, they can really build up great momentum in a solo. So there we go, guys. Okay, so we'll do one more little thing. I was already kind of starting to do it, and what I was doing here was I was moving the idea around with the chords. That is another trick that you guys can play around with. So not necessarily in a different key, but with a different chord. So I was taking that figure, which was the first lick that we did from the still from the Mixolydian solo. That's it's linked down below. It's not in the first 3 lines. It's further down. So if you click on See More, you'll see the direct link to the full tab for that solo if you want to learn that. But yeah, so I was taking that lick and transferring that to some of the other chords. So for that one, you know, like I was saying at the start, it ends on that note. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go up there, but let's say that you do, and that note there then is the root note. So it's the note of that chord. So what I was doing right there in that solo, I was actually going, transferring it to the E chord, you know, the 5 chord in the blues. In the blues in A, you know, you got an E chord and you got a D chord, the 5 chord and the 4 chords respectively, and then you got the 1 chord, the A. So I was actually transferring that that lick to E, and then I was transferring it to D as well, and then back to A. So that's another trick, you know, if you can move a lick around to fit the chords like that. Again, you know, we could use that that lick right there with the root note up top. You can do the same thing with that for the E chord and the D chord and back to the A chord. Let me play around with that. Yeah, so just playing around with it and following the chords, you know. And same with that. E, D, A. So again, just that, those are just fragments of the licks right there. So yeah, that's it, guys. Take little fragments of your licks and work them in so that you can even move them around with chords like that. It's a super like classic kind of blues thing to do, you know, to actually move your licks around with the keys like that. you know, it can sound a bit naff if you do it in a certain, you know, kind of way where it's extremely obvious. But if you do it with some taste and you've practiced doing it enough, you know, it's a really cool effect. And again, you know, opens up so many possibilities for your licks. So there we go, guys. Okay, I'm going to finish up with one more little idea, and that one comes from the slow blues, lo-fi groove kind of style jam that came out last Saturday. So it's almost a week ago that it came out. That one had a full solo tab as well, which is also on the Patreon, like all the other ones, obviously. And that one is linked below in the description as well. If you want to learn the full solo, you know, it's on there. You get access to that and, you know, tons of other solos if you join on Patreon. So let's dig into a couple of licks from that one. And the reason I want to pick that one is that is one more idea that you can do. So the whole idea really is that you see your licks as statements. They're like, it's like you're speaking, you know, it's like a statement. Every time you play a lick, it should really be a musical statement and not just a flurry of notes necessarily, but actually a statement that says something. And that's kind of the point with my next example, is that you can take statements like that and use them as like a conversation, you know, like as a call and response kind of thing. And that's what happened in that solo. Obviously it's improvised, because I mean almost all of my solos are improvised. The only ones that aren't improvised, I mean, I have maybe, I can only think of one actually. There's one where I did a replicated arranged a Coltrane solo for a jazz blues, John Coltrane, you know, sax player. I arranged that for the guitar and made that as the solo, which that solo tab is on Patreon as well. But aside from that, I'm not sure if there's any other solos of the intro solos that weren't improvised. Speaking of that, actually, I'm working on doing a Wednesday warm-up of transferring some Oscar Peterson lines, like a kind of more elaborate one. Some really great jazz piano lines. I'm working on transferring that into arranging that for the guitar, and that should be a Wednesday warm-up in the next month or so. It's real fun, but you know, you want to kind of really arrange it well for the guitar before it works as guitar licks, so to speak. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time to become as good as it can be. Okay, guys. So let me teach you that idea. The licks off of this is the last thing that we do. The licks off of the slow blues, lo-fi groove kind of vibe that came out last weekend. So it's also an A. So let's stay in A for now, and then maybe we'll try those licks in a different key. I'll play on one more track from the Sexy Series album at the end, and try and use some of those ideas, and then maybe we'll recap the all the principles so that you guys can really take them away and use them in your own playing. I hope that you'll have tons of fun with these ideas. Okay, so the idea goes, is that phrase, and then it's, okay, so it's an A, but it's A minor pentatonic to start with, like that. Okay, so first of all, we got that minor third there. We got the 5th fret on the G string, and then you got that's with your first finger, then 3rd finger on the 7th fret, 2nd finger on the 7th fret of the A string, and then 1st finger and 3rd finger on the 5th and 7th fret of the D string. fret on the G string. Like that. Okay? And then we're going to apply one of the principles that we've already kind of talked about, which is move it up to a different position. And so this is really speaking to that kind of call and response idea, because that's one of the ways that you can do call and response really well, you know, with yourself. And that's something that I love to do, which is like you play a phrase in one octave, then you play the same phrase or something slightly different, but kind of the same phrase in a different octave. That kind of conversation. You can also play completely different phrases, but the fact that you're like in one octave, then in another much higher and low, high, that kind of thing can become like a whole conversation that you're having with yourself. And you know, when you're having a conversation, it's like it's more likely that your licks are actual statements at that point, and that's when soloing, you know, becomes more memorable and more meaningful in some ways to listen to, you know, when you are making actual like musical statements. So that's that little riff. It's almost a riff, I guess. Now we're gonna take that riff and move it up, but then we're gonna twist the end of it and give it a little different vibe at the end of it. So first finger on the 8th fret of the E string, third finger on the 10th fret of the B string, and second finger on the 9th fret of the G string. Like that. And then 8, 10 on the the B string with your first and third fingers. Okay? And now instead of going, we're gonna get to that D note there. It's like going and then going. But instead we're doing it up here in the octave above, and we're gonna do it with a bend. So it's kind of a tricky little, you're sliding into a bend. I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna take that A note there on the 10th fret of the B string, and I'm gonna slide that up to the 13th fret, to the C natural. And then as soon as I get there, I'm gonna bend that note. So from the 13th fret up to the note, which is the D note on the 15th fret. Like that. I'm obviously gonna use my second finger behind the third finger to really support the bend there. Make sure that, that it doesn't cause strain here on the hand. So just try that little movement there. It's a cool little bend. Like that. So from the A on the 10th fret, you slide up to 13, and as soon as you get there, you bend it up to 15. You can always check if it sounds somewhat similar. Okay? So, can give it a bit of vibrato there as well. Now we're gonna pick the note again and then quickly release it, like that. From 15, release it down to 13. And then you're gonna play the A, and then that's F sharp there on the 11th fret of the G string, and then back up to the A. And well, this is a blues where it has just gone from the 4 chord down to the back to the 1 chord. Again, if you want to learn the whole solo, the full solo tab is linked below. It's the first part of the description. So after that, we go back to a major chord, so an A major. So therefore, we got this bend. Nice bend up to the major third. I love that kind of sound. So I'm bending from 12 to 14 on the B string, and then releasing it, and then bending it back up with my third finger, and giving it some vibrato. So that whole lick goes. So. Like that. There we go, guys. So, the idea here is that idea of call and response, and of playing things in different octaves, basically. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. And also to play, you know, to think of your phrasing as like statements. So, other ways that we could do that, you know, like, again, explore, you know, explore the various places that you can play all of the phrases like that, so that it really opens up the map, and it opens up the usage of that lick everywhere. And there we go, guys. Okay, I'm gonna play around with this idea and try and do some more call and response kind of ideas, and maybe I'll incorporate the previous licks as well from the Mixolydian jam, and just have a little bit of a jam here at the end. And like I said, this is the very last session that the last live stream session that that I do in this studio, that I'm doing in this studio. So it's the last time you're going to see this background in the studio. Obviously recorded some videos that you're going to see come out like over the next few weeks and stuff like that. But my day-to-day scenario is changing. I'm moving into a new studio with two very awesome. I mean, it's my own space, my own studio, but it's a building where there's actually in the area there's tons of other studios. But in that particular building, there's two other studios, and well, one is a studio and the other is the workshop of a very well-known amp and gear maker. I don't want to show, I don't want to share any names yet, but I'm excited to share this whole new situation with you. And I'm obviously doing a lot of work and getting some help from a friend, producer friend who knows a lot more about sound treatment and all that sort of stuff. He's helping me put up, you know, the proper sound treatment. But that studio space will be a humongous upgrade from my current work situation. And yeah, it's like, you know, I've been touring a lot less, and obviously right now I'm not going to be touring at all in the foreseeable future. So I've been really focusing on creating and making lots of music. I've got tons of albums coming out, both the actual obviously the jam albums. I've got 3 of them processed right now, so I'm dropping one that's just dropped here today. Obviously you can check out the Spotify and iTunes and all that sort of stuff, and I've got another 2 coming over the next month. And yeah, I'm putting out a lot of music on my main Spotify as well. Got some stuff going on there that I'm excited about sharing as well. So creating a lot of music anyways, and also creating obviously a ton of tabs and solos and jam tracks as always, and the Wednesday warm-ups are going to continue as well. So yeah, very, very happy to be in this position where I can take on this new studio and really get even better at communicating with you guys and helping everybody grow their musicality and just creating lots and lots and lots of music. So yeah, excited to share the new studio with you guys. You can always link up with me on Instagram. I'll show some stuff in my stories, and I always repost everybody playing on my jams as well. People are really starting to tag me on Instagram when they're playing on my tracks and everything else. I love to share, people in the jam fam like doing their thing and getting their skills together on the jam tracks, and that, man, it's so inspiring for me to see that. And so I'll always like do my best to reshare everybody that does that kind of thing, and another place to go and do that is obviously Reddit and Facebook. There's a Facebook group, Quist backing jam tracks. If you search for that, that one grew fast, real quick. It only started a few months ago, and it's already a complete hub of activity where people are sharing their jams and getting feedback on their playing and all that sort of stuff. Exactly what is just the best situation for with this whole community that we have got going. It's really inspiring for me to see how communities are also spilling into other networks, like Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else, and obviously Patreon. Like the way that this huge YouTube community has like spilled into all these other areas and is growing there as well. It's amazing and very, very inspiring to me. So I'm definitely putting out a lot more content and continuing this kind of communication that we have. So yeah, expect more of these live streams as well. But next time it's going to be in a different studio, and it probably won't look amazing to start with, because it's I'm starting from scratch, in a room. When I saw the studio and I took it over, it looked amazing, and but obviously the previous guy took all of his sound treatment with him, because that's what you do, it's expensive, that stuff. So I got to start all over and put in new sound treatment and get set up going that's going to make sense for what I do. So it'll take a little while. It won't look amazing when you see me. Hopefully I'll be able to do one next Friday. And having said that, let me know, guys. I'm going to jam you guys out and play around with what we've just been talking about. But let me know what kind of live streams you would like to see in the future, because I'll be interested in hearing that as well. So there we go, guys. So I'm gonna play on one more track. I'll play a little bit more on the slow blues in A, and I'll try and play around with all the concepts that we have been talking about. Thanks for hanging out, guys, and let me know what kind of stuff you'd like to see in future on future live streams. And obviously appreciate the support on Patreon. That's where you can get all the tabs, all the deep dive lessons, and these kind of live streams, they don't stay up forever either. They will go onto the Patreon and live there forever. Like I said, I'm jamming on the Sexy Series album, which came out today. You can grab a free download down below from christorama.com. And you can check it out on Spotify, all of that jazz. Appreciate you guys very much. Have a little bit of it more of a jam, and then there we go. was the end of that track right there. All right, so guys, I hope that you'll have some fun with all of these concepts. I leave it up to you guys right now to you know, take your licks, take some of these licks, take your own licks, take licks from wherever you can, and mess about with them in the ways that I just described. So I'll just go over very quickly actually what I was saying. Obviously I was saying try them out in different keys. So locate the root note or the origin key, and then try it out. Try all of your licks in, you know, as many keys as you possibly can. Try them out at different tempos, different styles, different feels, different grooves. Try them out in different positions. So various areas on the neck and various positions, like in the cage system, you know, try them out, mess about with them in as many different positions as you can. Now separate them into fragments and focus on getting in and out of those fragments in as many ways as you possibly can. And then also you can make those kind of repeated licks that I was making up right there from just little fragments of licks. So it's like whole new licks that are inside the licks already. And yeah, so making like different endings and different ways into your licks. That was that. And then we're talking about moving the licks around with the chords. So if a lick can be moved with the chords, that's, you know, opens up a whole new world of possibility as well. And then also we're talking about thinking of your licks as statements and using them as a call response kind of situation. And yeah, that is something to play around with. I would have liked to jam a little bit more actually right now, but I do actually have to go because man, time has flown, and I actually have a Skype lesson in about 5 minutes. I do also have a student tier on my Patreon, and I have a lesson in 5 minutes. So I do have to run, but I very much enjoyed hanging out with you guys, and thanks for the support. Appreciate you guys very much. And new jam coming out tomorrow with full tab and everything for the intro solo. That's it, guys. Last time you'll see me in this studio. Next Friday for our live session, it will be in the new surroundings. Appreciate you guys very much. I'll see you very soon. Take care, guys. Have fun.